What if sanctuary wasn't just a place, but a way of living? Welcome to the Sanctuary Network, your weekly home for conversations that awaken the heart, heal the body, and inspire the spirit. I'm your host, Mary Ellen Popyk, the creator of Spirit Fest and the Natural Wellness Expos. For 2 decades, I've been creating spaces, now creating a bold new broadcast for mind, body, and spirit, where seekers, healers, and teachers come together to share wisdom, laughter, and transformation. We've seen what happens when communities gather. People become enlivened. Now, through the Sanctuary Network, that same spirit is reaching you, wherever you are in the world. Each week, we'll sit down with thought leaders, authors, and everyday visionaries. We'll also shine a light on the grassroots voices of the sanctuary marketplace, the healers, vendors, and practitioners who make this movement thrive. This isn't just another show, it's your sanctuary, a space to pause, reflect, and reconnect with what matters most. So, take a deep breath, open your heart, and join me. Together, let's step into the sanctuary. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us this Wednesday evening here in Florida. If you're watching us live, we appreciate it. If you're watching us on replay, I think you're going to be really excited about our guest tonight and all the information that we're going to be speaking about. And I'm excited because not only do I have a very special guest on our show, I have a very special guest here in the sanctuary. So this might be a thing. I like being in person. It's just a little bit different than doing it online. So my very special guest today is Jim Vieira. And you might recognize Jim from several History Channel shows that he's done. The Search for the Lost Giants he did in 2014, and Roanoke, Search for the Lost Colony in 2015. He's also a frequent guest on Ancient Aliens, among other things, Josh Gates' Expedition Unknown. And he is what most of you don't know, and we're going to be kind of weaving our historical information in with spirituality. He is a lifelong Course in Miracles student and well-versed in the readings of Edgar Cayce. He's spoken at the ARE Ancient Mysteries Conferences 6 times. So we're very glad to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you, Mary Ellen.
And I think you're enjoying this weather here in Florida a little better than...
I am. I live in Western Massachusetts, you might be able to tell, and it is cold as hell there. And it's, yes, lovely here.
So Jim was at Spirit Fest in Port St. Lucie this past weekend, and it was a fantastic show. It was a great way to start the year. There were so many people there. We had our second highest one-day attendance ever at that show, and we had several other special guests as well, but it was a huge hit. But Jim is about to release it. How many books have you got now?
This is my 3rd book.
Your 3rd book. But it's about something really new and different that as far as I know, nobody's ever really published anything on it, about polydactylism. That's beings with 6 fingers.
Extra digits, yes.
Extra digits.
It's actually a rare genetic trait in humans. It's polydactyly, 6 fingers, 6 toes. I've been researching this for 15 years, writing this book. I take a long time to write books because I'm a recovering Catholic and I have all these guilt and shame issues, and I got to get everything right. But a lot of it is actually academic research. So the story is that extra digits in cultures across the world that had little or no contact, often no contact with each other, represents the divine, the supernatural, giants and gods, things that don't really jibe with this idea that, oh, this member of our tribe had extra digits, so we're going to make him a king or give him divine status. It's very specific. And this is like Australia, isolated Pacific Islands, the British Isles, all the United States. You have rock art showing giant hands and giant feet with this specific anatomic anomaly, which is eye-catching. And the pattern is well beyond coincidence. So you can imagine how much heat you catch when you do a show on the History Channel about giants. And there's a lot of trolls and pseudo-skeptics and debunkers out there. And there's a real polarized orientation, just like everything else. The algorithms weaponize your preferences, and you have pseudo-skeptics and alternative-minded people. And I try to stay out of the fray, quite honestly. I actually work with many professionals who are humble and open-minded behind the scenes, and I've spoken at university anthropology classes and archaeology classes and organized digs and know how science works, how archaeology works. But my intuition is telling me there is a variety of controversial subjects that not only do they deserve further investigation, but they ring true to me.
How did you first discover this, or what? How did this first pique your interest?
Uh, I'm a stonemason by trade. My brother and I are avid hikers, live in Western Mass, and we would go out in the woods and find anthropomorphs, turtles, serpents. And it started occurring to us, this doesn't appear like colonial stonework.
Mm.
But we know that Native American stonework occurred in other parts of the country, and we started to postulate an idea that Native Americans probably did build stonework, ceremonial landscapes in the Northeast. In fact, Native Americans have been in my area for like 13,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
South in Deerfield, Mass. Harvard just did a dig on Sugarloaf Mountain. So I think it was 12,800-year-old rock shelter. So the point is that I started to look at the old town and county histories because I said when the colonists showed up, they must have recorded Native American stonework. And they did, and it's very specific. Indian fences, they call them, and dry laid chambers and things like that. But then I started also to find bizarre giant skeleton reports in the town and county histories. And then I expanded my search, and these strange anatomic anomalies like double rows of teeth and jawbones that fit over the face swept across the country. And these voluminous historical documents buried obscurely in a time of inefficient communication.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at the Smithsonian's own ethnology reports, and they have many of these same enormous accounts, double rows of teeth, massive jawbones, by their own scientists. So, and I'm told by the Smithsonian, the tallest collection skeleton they have in the collection is 6'3"
Mm-hmm.
a Sioux Native American with acromegaly, a disease condition. And a long story short, there's a story here, I feel. And the data set that I've created is pretty compelling. If you have a 30-inch femur bone with Native American artifacts in a burial context that's understood, that's not a mastodon bone, and it equates to a 9-foot tall individual, or sometimes even taller. So I say that, I didn't intend to do this. I don't seek attention. I don't try to prove I'm right, but I find myself driven to create data sets about controversial ideas that ring true to me.
You really do go into the field. I mean, quite literally from what you're describing. But that is one thing that I think is really, really great about Jim is he's not somebody who goes and looks at some YouTube videos and then sort of pieces together the things that he's learned. He goes to the libraries, he goes and he talks to people, but because he is a stonemason in Western Massachusetts, he's actually out there and
Yeah,
literally in the field.
yes. I've traveled the world. I've done tours with Hugh Newman, my co-author. We're always filming. We're always searching, going to caves, going to obscure rock art sites, isolated Pacific islands, all around the world, digging into this mystery. And I find it personally, stonework pays the bills for me. There's nothing wrong with, excuse me, monetizing your profession, but I like to stay. I like to keep it quarantined. I'm like the Rain Man. It's 3 a.m. I have no social life. I'm reading some Sumerian cuneiform tablets, and that's just the way I operate. I don't want to blend the two worlds. So I spend, it's a full-time job.
I see a crossover with this work that you're doing with the historical exploration and the stone. You don't think?
Oh, no. I'm saying about like the monetization aspect.
Got it.
I don't want to have an agenda.
Yeah.
I don't want to try to be right. I don't want
He
to prove
doesn't.
my
Yeah.
case.
That's just true.
And I would like to lay it in the lap of objective people. And I find the general audience, the general public, is far more intelligent than the academic world gives them credit for, and far more intuitive. So that's why people are like, there's something under the Sphinx, there's something under Giza, and they're sick of being talked down to. That, like, when you're a professional, you got to be like a cop. You take a lot of heat, you deal with a lot of weirdos, and the way you gain respect
Mm-hmm.
is to be even-minded and humble.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way a professional should be. You shouldn't be on Twitter arguing with some alternative troll or whatever. You should be, basically evaluating objectively evidence. And I would say part of that evidence should be oral traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Thousands of years of data is being thrown out and ignored because we view oral traditions in our society as childish and superstitious. Like every
Yeah.
Native American tribe has legends of giants, extra digited giant malevolent beings that their ancestors warred with. Rock art. I'll quickly say Vine Deloria was a Lakota Sioux elder who organized in Washington State in the late 90s a conference where all these native wisdom keepers could share their tribe's tradition of giants. And this guy was on PBS, he was a lawyer, but he respected the traditions of the native people. So you often hear a dismissal of oral traditions. So I've met with wisdom keepers, shamans, all around the planet, and they tell me the same stories about cataclysms, lost worlds, giants, androgyny, the gods being
And the wisdom keeper stories are so specific too. They're not just tales. They are really specific information. That's why their roles are so important, is because they need to remember exactly the information that they've been taught, and they do. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Von Delory has all these quotes, and one of them is basically there is no reason for embellishment amongst the transmission of oral traditions. It's like sacred, it's important. As bizarre as it sounds, you know, you talk about giants and little people and cataclysms and lost worlds. That's what is being transmitted. That's the important information. So you take that together with the mystics, the secret societies. You know, I study Edgar Cayce, Steiner, Blavatsky, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, all the Greek chroniclers, and they're all saying Atlantis was actually a historical reality. That's where the Rosicrucians and Freemasons gathered all their esoteric wisdom through Egypt to the modern day. You have the temple priests at Sais telling Solon about Atlantis. You have the Greek traditions talking about a lost world in Giza. So all these things line up with mystics and psychics like Edgar Cayce.
Right. So the legend goes that when Atlantis broke apart, that the beings from that continent may or may not have been human. They may have been some of these other types of beings, right?
Well, I can give you the Edgar Cayce story.
Tell us.
He said in 210,000 BC, Atlantis was founded as a civilization in the middle of the Atlantic. Now, other sources like Gary Renard is a Course in Miracles teacher and a friend of mine, and Mary Ellen organized a talk with him in the past too. So we know Gary. He has these ascended master teachers who say that the first inhabitants of Atlantis were in fact benevolent extraterrestrials. Where the Dogon people in Mali, Africa would tell us that the Nomo came from Sirius. That humans in the traditions are a byproduct of genetic intervention or genetic creation.
Wow.
The giants in all the traditions, including Native American, were the first creation, destroyed mostly in a cataclysm. Then androgynous divine humans were created as worker bees, but we were too perfect, so we were downgraded. Our lifespans were shortened, and you find this in the Epic of Atrahasis in ancient Iraq, Samaria, and you also find it in the Popol Vuh in northern Guatemala. Cucumatz blows smoke into the humans to downgrade their cognitive abilities. Paul Anthony Wallace is a brilliant ex-archdeacon scholar who writes about this in all his Eden series as well, if you're interested in the story. So you have this these traditions of what occurred in the past, and Cayce talks about Atlantis in 210,000 BC being founded. First humans, oddly, were androgynous in his rendition of Atlantis. And in 50, 28, and then 10,000 BC were the three cataclysms. When the island split up, and then Plato's Atlantean flood.
Say those dates again.
50,000 BC, 28,000 BC, and 10,000 BC were the three destructions. So the last cataclysm was the Platonic flood. There's even a cataclysmic event that Graham Hancock and others keep pointing to, and Randall Carlson. It's the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which has a ton of evidence behind it.
And that was a comet, right?
A comet strike on the Greenland ice sheet, I believe. There's some, you know, Dr. Robert Schoch thinks it might be solar activity, but there was some form of cataclysm and massive flooding. So I just say we ignore oral traditions at our own peril, and we ignore the written documents of the people that were closer to the events that we're trying to understand. And there, if you landed on this planet today, you read through all these Sumerian texts and the Popol Vuh and all these ancient traditions, you would say the Orthodox version has nothing to do with what uh, people are screaming about for centuries, for generations. Like something bizarre took place
Right.
in the world, and Atlantis is the linchpin of that. It's considered so outrageous, so impossible,
Hmm.
but none of that's true. It's once you understand geology and you understand that uniformitarianism and gradualism are just theories that get
Hmm.
glommed onto. There's a lot of ego in the academic world as well, and I just feel that the approach I take is to blend science with spirituality.
Hmm. Right.
Plato, Pythagoras, the old scientists were metaphysicians. They went to the mystery schools. They understood the nature of reality, the true nature of reality. They were intuitive and they were open to these ideas.
Hmm.
Where the modern scientist is basically involved in an atheistic cult, let's be honest, whatever you think of it. Scientists are, it's ingrained in them that,
Hmm.
it's ammonia, lightning hit ammonia, and the Big Bang happened, and we're just carbon machines, and we die, and that's it.
Right.
Lights out.
Anything you can't prove doesn't exist.
Exactly. So that kind of toxic materialism blends and gets into the sciences. Because I'm open to channeling.
Hmm.
I'm open to, at your shows you have
Hmm.
brilliant readers, and
Hmm.
then they give you these readings, and it all comes true, very specific.
Hmm.
They know things about you that are absolutely impossible.
Yeah.
We just saw Mark Anthony this weekend,
Hmm.
and it's like, holy hell. I mean, he should be in there with the team of scientists, like verifying and fact checking and saying, I can't believe like what comes through him.
He might be.
Yeah.
That's another show.
It's a long-winded way of saying that ancient mysteries are a gateway drug to spirituality. That's what I
Mhm.
feel,
Yeah.
especially among dudes. It's like guys like adventure, they like exploring, they like ancient mysteries and lost civilizations. But the real questions are, what are we doing in time and space? What's our real nature? What are the spiritual texts
Mhm.
telling us? Even Plato talked about the divine, eternal nature of the soul.
Mhm.
It's important to figure that out because if not, it's just a good story. That's what I feel. So I have no problem blending. I'll write a book that's 90% academic sources,
Mhm.
10% oral tradition, but I have no problem talking about psychics and mediums and clairvoyance and.
I kind of compare this. I'm a genealogist. I do a lot of family history work for people, help people join the American Revolution. And sometimes there's not always exactly those certificates and the forms and the census records and the things you need.
Mhm.
And then that's what you do. You kind of rely on patterns and kind of the way things were at the time and intuition, but oral history, Bibles, what people wrote and the cover of the Bibles,
Mhm.
things like that were extremely important. And that is, I think, considered research. And then that's applying your logic, which is what you do, which is not an easy thing because you are relying on your intuition a lot.
It's funny you said that. The quote in my head that just came to me is Jonas Salk. Intuition shows the thinking mind where to look next. So
Yeah.
that's what I roll with. In
Hmm.
fact, I lead off all my PowerPoints with that. My gut's telling me there's a story here,
Right.
and I'm taking on one of the most outrageous, considered ridiculous, impossible investigations. Giants. It's like,
Hmm.
where does that fit in the evolutionary tree? It makes no sense. uh, you're not just marginalized, ridiculed if you even entertain it. You're considered a grifter or somebody who doesn't understand how science works. But I would say they are not a byproduct of natural evolution, nor are humans.
Hmm.
We are something different created by, I'll throw this out there, all the wisdom, the culture heroes all around the world, the ones who teach the arts of civilization to humans in almost every civilization are amphibious, androgynous, self-replicating, often configured as husband, wife, brother, and sister androgens that terraform and they teach the arts of civilization. They present languages to the indigenous people. That's Oannes in Samaria. He's like a fish guy.
Hmm.
Berosus in 280 BC and Babylonica tells us that he teaches the humans by day and he sleeps in the river at night. He's literally in a hybrid amphibian that shows up. Matsya in India, the same thing. I get images of this weird fish being. He teaches the arts of civilization, and he sleeps in the ocean at night, and he doesn't eat in front of the humans. And then it goes on and on. Fuxi and Nuwa in China, husband and wife, brother and sister, self-fertilizing androgens who bring the I Chi and civilization to the Chinese people. And you could Google that, and the Chinese still worship Fuxi at temples to this day. Yamaya and Olakun in West Africa, the Nomo, the eight are from Sirius, they tell us. They're amphibian, self-replicating. That's a very specific thing. And they're all brother and sister, husband and wife androgens. The pairing is telling you that they are self-replicating beings. It's not they're married. It's it's like, Viracocha and Mamacocha in Peru, the same story. And I could go on and on. Ron and his wife in the Nordic lands. He's like this fish cub.
The fish gods, yeah.
Fish gods. It sounds funny, and you get the Starbucks fish goddess, but they live in the watery abyss. That's where Oannes, that's where Enki live, because they are aquatic wisdom bringers that teach the arts of civilization. I say that because I do like a 2-hour talk on this, and I show like there is no way that these cultures that had no contact could run down this level of specificity.
Right.
Lastly, I'll say in Egypt, Osiris, Isis, brother and sister, husband and wife, they are portrayed as amphibians oftentimes. And if you read all the coffin texts, the pyramid texts, and on the walls of Edfu, you will find several passages that talk about the Ogdoad and the Ennead being self-replicating beings. That's very specific. And a long story short, Carl Sagan said that the Sumerian civilization was founded by a strange succession of creatures, and the Oannes legend deserves further investigation. So I start with Sagan, and anybody starts crying about it, some pseudo-skeptic, what I'm like, hit the road. It's like the most brilliant scientist in history is telling us to investigate that. So that's kind of where I come from. I don't want to be too long-winded, but the context is important because these aren't flaky ideas. These are ideas rooted in written in oral traditions around the planet.
When I heard, that you were talking about these were taking place all over the world in places where plausibly there was no contact, I thought about that documentary that you had me watch, The Red Paint People. It was on PBS like 30 years ago.
The Maritime Archaic in Maine, up in northern Maine. And
it was so good. And it was, so this is Maine. This is the United States. And they were finding these graves that they would put red paint or some type of paint or color in the bottom of these graves and then bury the people in a certain way. And then you learn all about it, which was really fascinating. But then at the end, they show you that they were buried up Maine, all the way up Nova Scotia into Newfoundland, but then also on the Brittany coast of France and all the way down. And that's a huge area for these people, but they have no idea who these people were. That's what just blew my mind, is there was this whole civilization that was buried over, was it hundreds of years? Do you know how long it was?
Thousands of years.
And no one knows. There's no record of this at all. So that's what I really appreciate is, about historical explorers like you that are helping to document this with these people so that we can, be able to piece all of this together and, see if we can figure out maybe who these people were.
Totally. Well, I look to different traditions like Edgar Cayce. The red paint people show up around 9000 BC, probably or a little earlier. Cayce has some fascinating things to say. There's this pseudo-skeptical argument that everybody who studies Atlantis is like invested in Nazi Superman, building all these ancient structures and stuff. In fact, Cayce said that the Native Americans were the red race, that they showed up in the United States first, they showed up after Atlantis sank 12,000 years ago in the Midwest region. The Iroquois are part of what he called this first migration. And in fact, the Iroquois have the highest incident of haplogroup X on the planet, 25%. And haplogroup X is believed to be that Atlantean DNA that dispersed around the world after this cataclysm.
23andMe, you check your results, see what haplogroup you're from.
And then the red paint people seem to be an offshoot of that. You don't show up with your toaster and your computer. You're fleeing the cataclysm, but you're sophisticated. You know how to make tools. You know how to organize society. And the people who landed on the coast of Maine and up to Labrador were very sophisticated. They would go out and deep sea fish, and the cold North Atlantic and up in Maine is ridiculous. So imagine that, 10,000 years ago, these people fishing and carving out a life after probably emigrating from another place. And that may or may not be true. It rings true to me, but I think the point is to be open to these other sources, because I think modern archaeology has failed us because there's no spirit in it. There's no intuitive feeling in it. It's just cold, listless data that is not informed by a holographic or a metaphysical underpinning. That's just my take. And that, just like when you go to the doctor and you break your leg, you're glad the doctor can help you, but he's not going to tell you the secrets of life or how to meditate or how to, find your divine nature. So you need to go outside of the lines.
Right. You need to go to where some of these spiritual or sacred sources are to get information. But I think channeled information is very valuable. We've talked about Kevin Ryerson on the show before. Shirley MacLaine talked about him. I believe he was actually in some of her movies, Out on a Limb.
Yep.
And he channels an entity who can read the Akashic records, and he can tell people what their past lives were. But he also is very good with ancient historical information that would lend to some of the other research that people are doing. He's got a lot of really great books.
And I just think it's, the people who listen to this, they're dialed in spiritually. And the same stories, they're almost unbelievable. Like, I got hit off the head twice with books. People tell that all the time. I was literally at a bookstore, and I think one was The Law of One, and the other might have been The Course in Miracles or Edgar Cayce or Ramana Maharshi. But my whole life has been led like this. I started, much like you, reading all the spiritual literature. I started my teenage years reading The Law of One and all these books, reading the Upanishads and all these complex Indian Sanskrit texts. And I was just driven to it. My movie character in this lifetime is like, okay, loser, you're not going to go to sleep. You're going to be oriented to do this. And that, you should feel heartened by that. It's like, oh, it's 11:11. Oh, another undeniable sign. I say this because Mary Ellen read The Law of One, and I did this super dense channeled material from Kentucky. It was Dawn Elkins and the female channel in the early 80s. And it's Casey-esque. It's written in an arcane language. This collective, this mind hive called Ra, that visited Egypt 10,000 years ago and assisted the people there, is channeled through this woman who's like out,
really good information.
Really good information. Super dense, super specific, very arcane and difficult to follow. Just like the Casey material, it's like you cannot fake this.
Because Edgar Cayce was what, 30s that he channeled this?
20s, 30s, 40s.
Well before the internet. So let's put a pause on that for right now. When we come back from the next commercial break, we will get more into this. But I want to let everybody know that you can see Jim here in Florida. You can meet him in person and actually see the slides that go with this presentation about his new book that we're going to talk more about. Go to spiritfestusa.com and at the top, look for the tab for the St. Pete Show for all the details. So stick with us and we'll be back in a few minutes.
Hi, I'm Susan from My Enchanted Path, where I create divinely guided candles, intention oils, soaps, and more that make spiritual practice simple, no complicated rituals. The names may be playful, but every product is serious about helping you shift your energy. All fragrances are clean and safe, free from major toxins no one wants in their home or on their skin. With a 5-star rating and over 100,000 customers, MyEnchantedPath.com is a trusted source for charming items for an enchanted life.
Experience the healing magic of the Himalayas. Tibetan singing bowl classes and sessions are available at Kopali Inputs, which is located at downtown St. Petersburg, Florida.
Florida has a great new option for healthy living. Our Natural Health Expos were a hit last year, so 2026 brings more events around Florida. This special event offers health and wellness opportunities for people and pets. High-quality experts in well-being, healing, anti-aging, and natural living. Plus, you'll find speakers, demonstrations, and much more. All details, list of locations, and discounted admission can be found at naturalwellnessexpo.com.
Hi, this is Mark Anthony. I'm the psychic lawyer, also known as the Psychic Explorer, and I'm proud to be teaming up with Dr. Pat Basili for our show, The Psychic and the Doc, your practical paranormal power unleashed. And on this show, all subjects are on the table and no topic is taboo. Tune in, and better yet, call in Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific on transformationtalkradio.com.
Hey everybody, oh my goodness, we have got talk radio for all of it.
Really, thank you for blazing the trail for women in talk radio and just being such an inspiration to me and so many other people. What you're doing is so awesome. And, you know, without people like you there to like really step out of the box and go for it, I don't know if someone like me would have ever ended up here, but I'm so happy to be here. And yeah, I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. You're one of my major inspirations.
Welcome back, everyone. We are having a great show tonight with our special guest, Jim Vieira, author, stonemason, world explorer, historical detective, and host of History Channel shows like Search for the Lost Giants and Roanoke, Search for the Lost Colony. Also love seeing you on Ancient Aliens. That's always so cool. That's my jam. So we have been talking about different channelers or different texts that mention these beings, ancient beings that we don't know, are they extraterrestrials or who are they? And we were talking about what is the Law of One?
The Law of One.
Law of One. What other texts have you been researching particularly for this book?
What's her name? Claire Song. Names escape me. Anna, Grandmother of Jesus, is a channel book. If you Google it, it's fascinating. Trevor Grassi is a friend of mine. Him and William Brown are searching the lost underworld of Giza. And William owns a property near the Sphinx, and they're trying to get permits to investigate, to excavate. And Trevor turned me on to that because in the book, they say, the channel says that the grandmother of Mary, Anna, in fact, spent time in this underground labyrinth under the Giza Plateau. And that there were tunnels from all the way from Alexandria to the Giza Plateau. And under Glastonbury Tor, I just went there on a tour in England, that underneath there was another repository of lost records where these high beings used to exist and teach.
Right.
So you have these traditions, and you have the Book of One, the Law of One books that say Atlantis was a historical reality. There was a collective of basically a hive mind of alien intelligence that informed the Egyptian people how to do pyramid building, what the purpose was. Edgar Cayce says, just like all the ancient traditions, that the pyramid was an initiation chamber.
Right.
That ancient sites around the world were built to raise your consciousness. They are tools of enlightenment. And you surrender your judgments and your hatreds and your separate self, and you sacrifice them and transmute them. You do not sacrifice animals and humans and everything that happened after. That's kind of the dark sons of Belial forces that he talked about that led to the downfall of Atlantis in his story. So you have these many sources saying the same thing about why the pyramids were built. And this is Giorgio from my friend from Ancient Aliens says this oftentimes. Pseudo-skeptics want to portray alternative-minded people in the most kind of harsh and belittling way, right? So it's like, you're an idiot, you think aliens built the pyramids. And the question he would say, and I would say, is no, who are the gods who show up
Right.
that give information and start civilizations around the world.
Mhm.
Who are they? They're written, they're carved into stone all around the planet. They're
Right.
serpent gods, they're amphibians, they're androgens, they're wisdom bringers. And the Dogon people from Mali, Africa tell us they're from Sirius. So you have this extraterrestrial story underpinning it. And I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
I think it's some of it is nomenclature too. I feel like in the Bible, things that angels, were the angels extraterrestrials? Were they gods?
Yeah.
I think that they're the light beings, the shining ones. Who were they? I think that they used the best language that they could to describe, and I think that there was probably a lot of different beings.
Totally. And the Book of Enoch is considered apocryphal. It is left out of the canon of the Christian faith, although the Ethiopian Orthodox Church has it
Mhm.
as one of their canons. So it's like a acid trip if you read the Book of Enoch. It is wild.
Also really cool. If you want to read something, you're really into some really great stuff, get the book. I'm not sure where it's online.
Oh, it's online for free.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
And some fragmentary remains, sometimes you get like passages that aren't all there, but it's utterly fascinating. It's basically Enoch is abducted. He's
Mhm.
taken in the heavens, just like in the Vamanas and the Hindu traditions. These beings are taken up and shown the battlefields, have flown around. It's obvious what's going on. It's so obvious. If you didn't have a pre-existing bias, you would say these people firmly believe that their leaders, rulers, friends were taken up in craft. And the Book of Enoch is really fascinating because within it is the Book of Giants.
Mhm.
That literally the Book of Giants. And there are several copies at Nag Hammadi or the Dead Sea Scrolls, I forget which one, showing how important this text was to these people. It's like these spiritual masters, these Essenes, these beings who were committed to freeing themselves from all these false beliefs. They were basically obsessed with the idea of giants
Mhm.
and genetic engineering and interbreeding and all these
Mhm.
bizarre things. So, I would say just be wary of who you follow in for your information, because in the alternative world, there's no peer review.
Right.
We talk where people, straight people would say these guys are out of their mind. They're way out there, but
Yeah.
we're actually very skeptical. I've uncovered many hoaxes, written about them. I have a fair level of skepticism. I know you do too, but that doesn't mean that the story of humanity isn't like a sci-fi movie.
You just look at where the information comes from. Check out the author or the researcher or
Yeah.
where it came from. If it's online, anybody can make YouTube videos. So I'm always really skeptical of YouTube videos. There's some great ones out there, but
Yeah, a lot of it is there's these general themes in the alternative world. We could never do that with the tools of the time. Uh, you know, that stone was geopolymer. It's not like real granite or whatever. And then people run with these themes, like, I'm not just, I deal with people, they say, oh, the earth is flat. And I'm not like, oh, you're an idiot. I'm like, I would tell you, um, look at both sides of the story,
Mhm.
because you can make a compelling case if there's no pushback from another viewpoint, and you can go, wow, that's, because people don't trust the government, they don't trust the news sources, they know something is insanely wrong with our society and all the systems.
Mhm.
But we don't want to conflate archaeology and anthropology with like intelligence agencies or government bureaucracies. It's more just like individual people, um, going about their work, and you got to find the right ones.
Mhm.
And it's a long-winded way of saying that, like, there's AI generated crap, there's grifters, there is a reason, excuse me, to
No names mentioned.
no, I'm not gonna shit on them. No, there's a reason to throw red meat to your crowd. You can monetize it better.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. So that's it. Just be discerning.
Yeah, be
where you get
discerning.
your information from. There's a lot that you can research if you just take the time to do it.
I frankly I think Paul Anthony Walsh is brilliant.
Okay.
He's one of the Eden series. If you he has tons of videos too. You can just see his videos. He's a scholar. He's absolutely brilliant, and he's a really nice guy. He's really empathic and open to metaphysical ideas.
Mhm.
But it is, you have to have the mind of an academic and an intellectual, frankly, to correctly take on a lot of these. You got to know the jargon. You got to have grasp of the scientific method. You got to understand a massive amount of concepts and distill information.
Mhm.
So, you know, I look and sound like a guy you place a bet with, but you know, I was trained as an economist.
Yeah.
My brother and I kind of get, you know, I'm not gonna whatever. I got my strengths and weaknesses, but my movie character has the mind for it. Is my point. So, did that just go out? Oh,
The book that you were talking about, the law of one.
Yeah.
It's also called the raw material.
yes.
Raw material. And then just reading through it, you know, it's just compelling. You get goosebumps or a good intuition, you know, but if you can relate this to other things that you've come to understand, you'll see if you get some confirmation with it. But I think it is really high level stuff.
Absolutely. They're not talking, you know, they're not being led with questions. This raw source, this hive mind, is just spitting out these. This is how it works. These are the different densities and dimensions. They talk about Maldek being a planet where the asteroid belt is now destroyed and the souls incarnated on Earth. They talk about life on Mars, which is another interesting thing. Something tells me that there was once life on Mars. Robert Monroe, the Monroe Institute in Virginia, they work for Project Stargate for the CIA, and they do remote viewing. So one of the reasons,
Sorry.
oh, Mr. Bingley,
Corgi alert.
one of the readings, you can find this on the internet, the whole reading is about they're given like the coordinates.
Mhm.
I don't know how they do it, but the reader doesn't know what's going on.
The remote viewing is a military scientific thing.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So this isn't just woo.
No, not at all. And basically it's going through time and space, not just distance, to figure out what was going on. They were using it, you know, the psychic spies against the Russians. Anyways, this reading was from 1 million BC, and there was a race of giant beings on Mars in pyramid-like structures that were basically dying off. And that's what this reader tapped into. And something about it, like Mars reads like a planet that was destroyed by cataclysm.
It really does.
And it was like, there's no water, there's no life. And as we go on, decade after decade, it's like, oh, they have water, they have poles, they have, you know, more and more and more. And now people are seeing structures there too. My point is that science has been wrong. Like, that's the way science works. Wrong, right. Wrong, right.
Right.
And you should be open-minded. What do we have wrong? You know, we have hobbits and Denisovans that show up. We have Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a 12,000-year-old megalithic, you know, masterpiece that, you know, shouldn't exist. You know, 20 years ago, the argument that Mark Lehner used against Robert Schoch, who said the Sphinx was 10,000 years old, was there is no contemporaneous sophisticated stonework on the planet that's 12,000 years old.
Mhm.
And he was like, really, we're taking a run at Schoch, like, how dare you, basically, at this panel at the University of Chicago. And is it like, oh, sorry, we found Göbekli Tepe.
Mhm.
Let's change our mind about that. Maybe the pyramids are older,
Yeah.
just like the documents and the traditions of the Egyptians say. The time of the gods was much older.
Mhm.
You know, like all, you could feel it, you could see it, the entrenched arrogance, the ego.
Mhm.
And when you're out there in the public eye, nobody likes backpedaling. Nobody likes admitting they're wrong. Like the healthiest thing I've ever done is admit I'm wrong, self-reflect. And that, I think, expands your intuition and you're more able to see
Mhm.
with a clearer vision. Because I, you know, of course, it'd be cool if like Atlantis existed, but I'm not wedded to it. I'm not going to live and die by the idea,
Mhm.
but I will investigate it and be open to it.
That's something that I've investigated as well. And there's a lot of very interesting coincidences. And one that was pointed out to me was that the center, sort of like the capital city, was in the Bahamas area. And then they have the concentric rings and then they overlap so that the next closest one to the Bahamas would have been Mexico City. But if you start looking at other places in the world, you're going to find interesting structures and sacred sites.
Absolutely.
And it kind of checks out.
Like the harbor at Carthage had this footprint of the Atlantean central city that
Mhm.
now destroyed, I think, in the Punic Wars.
Mhm.
There's a lot of sources that say, like Edgar Casey said, basically from the Canary Islands off the west coast of Africa to Bimini to Bermuda, that area, the Atlantic continent was actually huge.
Mhm.
You know, probably encompassed the Azores. I know Randall Carlson, the geologist, talks about that. But Gary Renard's teachers say the same thing. They talk about the Canaries being part of, or off the coast at least, that, excuse me.
And Gary Renard's other channeled information, spiritual information, and he's got several books.
Yeah.
Which book does he speak of that? Do you remember?
In his fourth book, The Lifetimes When Jesus and Buddha Were Friends.
Mm.
Now, he has a pair of ascended master teachers who appear to him and teach him. And it sounds like, that's supernatural, or that's impossible, or whatever. And Gary's kind of like me. He's kind of a Boston knucklehead, blue collar guy or whatever. He's not a BS artist, and he basically, the book reveals a incredible level of metaphysical understanding, of non-dualistic understanding. And I've studied it all. Shankara, Advaita Vedanta, Ashtavakra Gita, all the texts that point to non-duality as the reality, if you will. Gary, through his teachers, or his teachers, transmit this unbelievable knowledge that he could never, and he admits it, I could never pull this off, himself. And they sprinkle in all these historical ideas, like Shakespeare was actually an enlightened being. The 17th Earl of Oxford was Shakespeare, because the regular Shakespeare was a stiff in real life. He was not a genius. He was kind of a loser actor. And De Vere gave him, if you ever watched the movie Anonymous, so they put in all these ideas. They talk about Atlantis as a historical reality. They talk about the eternal nature of the soul. They talk about when the universe will disappear and why it was created, and how nothing you do in the matrix of time and space alters your perfection. But we over-identify with our movie character, as Edgar Cayce says. We've fallen into matter, and then we start to when I die, I'm going to float around in space, in a gym body or something like that. Instead of, you are a wave and not you are the ocean and not the wave.
Disappearance of the Universe, by the way, is a really good book. When it first came out, it was the thing to read. And for people who are on a spiritual path, that would be something that I would suggest everyone read.
Absolutely. I read it because I read the course. I had a high-level course teacher. The course is like over 1,000-page document. Course in Miracles. Yeah. Channeled by Helen Schuckman in the 70s. And basically purported to be from the historical Jesus. It's mostly written in Shakespearean blank verse, iambic pentameter, so it slows you down. You can't read it fast. And it's a holographic masterpiece. It doesn't contradict itself, and it repeats the same themes over and over again, because we are so deluded by our false beliefs in a separate self that we have to repetitively hear truth to undo our own insanity. So you read it and you're like, what does this mean? But then Gary came in with his teachers and was this great bridge. And then it became clearer what the message is. And your ego might not like the message, because it's not about specialness. It's about your eternal nature. It's not like they're going to throw a parade for me. I'm going to be the biggest hero on earth. It's like, the concepts of the course are great, like special love and special hate. Like, oh, I love you, but I hate the guy down the street. Like we put all these varying degrees of love and hate on people in our orbits. Instead of saying these are all movie characters working their way back to the one, and the traits that you see in them that you don't like actually are unhealed insanity. It's not even true, but you still believe it. So that projection, they give all the psychological terms. But the disappearance of the universe will answer every question you have about existence through the eyes of the mystics. Let me just say this briefly. I've studied virtually all the enlightened masters throughout human history, all the documents, all their enlightenment stories, and they all say the same radical and specific thing. So if you believe in spirituality, if it rings true to you, you want to go to Lao Tzu, Jesus, Buddha, Ramana Maharshi, Nisargadatta Maharaj, all the masters, and then all guys with, Hindu names and stuff like that, like Adi Shante, Robert Adams. There's always enlightened beings all throughout history. They all say the same thing. You are eternal, blissful, and the universe of time and space is a temporary thought experiment, a prodigal son screw up maybe. The shamans tell me there's a beauty in forgetting. I'll say this, like, as a hopeful message, like, you're an idiot, you dream this dream, but when you awaken or you get a glimpse of what you really are, it's like so heartening. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm that. right? So maybe that's the logic in it. The point is, nothing you do within the matrix changes your divine, blissful, wonderful, eternal state.
Right, right. And that's the end of that. That's the name of the game.
Totally. Then you just give up all the like all the self criticism, all the worry. It's not like I'm gonna live 10,000 years in my body. It's just
I mean that we let go of all of our things that we've been doing and habits, or religious paths or spiritual paths. I mean, it's just a way of thinking. It's a philosophy as much as a spiritual path.
Yeah.
Let's get back to your book though. Tell us more places where they have found the polydactyl beings.
It's probably a line like it's easy to tell you places where they haven't, but
How about in the United States?
No, yes. I'm being a wise guy. In Baja California, some of the oldest rock art in the country, in El Carmen Cave, you can Google it. We've actually last season in Ancient Aliens, we filmed the Giants episode, it was called, and we show the El Carmen Cave, these giant rock art beings with 6 fingers and 6 toes. And then Mysteries of the Pacific, I show this all around the country, and we just filmed an episode about rock art around the world, like displaying extra digits for part of the episode as well. So if you watch Ancient Aliens, I'll be on several episodes discussing these sites. The Cave of El Carmen on the Baja Peninsula shows giant beings with 6 fingers on all the hands, male and female. So the Jesuit priests show up in the 1700s, and the Kachimi live there, the native people. And the Jesuits asked the Kachimi who made these 18, 20-foot tall giant beings. And they say the giants from the north, our ancestors didn't do it, and they were male and female. And the rock art clearly shows breasts on the side, male and female giants with strange headgear and 6 fingers on all the hands. And that's stunning in its own right. And then you go down the Baja Peninsula and you find more of this, and you find oversized 6-toed, 6-fingered beings shooting arrows at regular sized humans. You find 6-fingered beings littered with arrows. And it's like Clifford Mahooty.
God rest his soul.
Yeah, Mary Ellen had him in, and I got to spend a lot of time with Clifford, and he's like sharing the Zuni wisdom with me. He was a wisdom keeper. I recently talked to his son as well. He's like, yes, 6 digits, giants. He talked about all the traditions of giants among the Hopi and the Sioux and all the tribes all across the country. But the specific thing he pointed to was these extra digits associated with giants. So you go to Texas, the Albiates Flint Quarry, 13,000 years old. There's a giant footprint with 6 toes. The Park Service sent me the image, as a matter of fact. Super ancient native site. And you have this enormous 6-toed foot. You go to Judaculla Rock in North Carolina. The Cherokee told James Mooney, the Smithsonian ethnologist who lived with them, that the giant Judaculla scratched his 7-toed handprint into the rock, and it's still there. And then Track Rock, Georgia, Illinois, giant feet next to a small 5-toed foot. Chaco Canyon is littered with extra digits. I'll just land on another couple places as well. The Pacific Islands, Australia, you have Aboriginals who are refurbishing a 30-foot painting, rock art painting that's 20,000 years old of Oro, the giant, and he has 6 fingers and 6 toes. And the wisdom keeper of the Aboriginal people in this article that just came out is saying, oh, this giant came from the north and he had 2 wives. And then you have isolated Pacific Islands with giant hands, giant feet, giant statues. And I'll actually say the giant in the Bible, the giant of Gath, has 6 fingers and 6 toes. And Göbekli Tepe, Karahan Tepe, Saybirch, all the super ancient places in the Middle East are in real time unearthing, like a 16-fingered statue just came out of Karahan Tepe. And we talked about it, me, Andrew Collins, and Hugh Newman, and the Lost City about Karahan Tepe on Ancient Aliens. So the oldest cities on Earth in real time are revealing more of this extra digited iconography that is so specific. Malta, British Isles, I mean, it is outrageous. And I did this book as an example of creating a data set. I use almost exclusively expertise in academic sources to make this case and to put it out there that there are many things that are worthy of investigation.
Right.
Because we're told all these ideas are ridiculous and impossible. Atlantis is a fantasy, giants are silly. So for me, it's like to give people confidence to investigate these controversial ideas. So hopefully that rings true. And I feel like I've been in the game for like, many decades now. And I really feel like for me, it's like the most data rich, obvious case of there's a story here that I've ever encountered. That's why it took me 15 years.
When do you think your book is going to be published?
I think
soon.
February is, yeah.
Okay. And where will people be able to find it when it's released?
On Amazon. I'm on Facebook.
That's where you would find Jim right now. He does have a website.
Yeah, I got a website that's coming up with the book.
Yeah.
A new website.
Yeah. And Vieira is Vieira. So
correct.
2 I's.
I got like a scarf. My background picture is I'm rubbing my dog friend at the Sphinx.
Because there's several old outdated Facebook pages on there too.
Exactly. I got no tech skills.
You can see which ones have been updated the most recently.
And I'll I will post all relevant information, tours I'm doing.
We will also be sure to post it on our Spirit Fest and the Sanctuary Network pages too when your book is released. So so that's where to find Jim, is on Facebook for right now. Soon his website will be back up. That's jimvieira.com. Vieira, Vieira.
Correct.
Yes. But if you would like to see Jim in person this coming weekend in St. Petersburg at Spirit Fest, his presentation is actually included with admission, but he'll be there signing books all weekend. So go to spiritfestusa.com, look for the tab at the top for St. Pete to get more details. Doors open at 10 a.m. each day. And you could call in. If anybody would like to call in the next half hour, you can actually ask questions from Jim. The number is 800-930-2819. So, and if you are listening to us on the player on the Transformation Network, that information is all on there as well. You'll find a link to Jim's page and, of course, all of the information about Spirit Fest. So, but this is a great opportunity. He doesn't get to Florida very often because he's too busy building stone things in New England. So we're very lucky to have him here, and we're really excited when that book will come out too. But if you come to Spirit Fest and see his presentation, you're going to see all the slides.
It is true that I have like 300 basically images and slides and text describing this. It's really it's just stunning. It's like the Olmec Humboldt Celt. It was destroyed in a Berlin museum in World War II. But anyways, they found it in the Olmec lands, right? The Olmec were the predecessors to the Maya, 1200 BC to I think about 200 AD. And it was super sophisticated. And there is a Celt that is an Olmec cosmogram. They're basically the most important Rosetta Stone of understanding Olmec mythology, and in the middle of it, next to the 3 stones of creation, is a 6-fingered hand. So it's stuff like that, like this. The Sumerian temple priests and exorcists and sorcerers were obsessed with polydactyly. The Summa Ibzu is a compendium of tetralogical omens. Tablets 4 and 5 are like, what do I do for my child with 6 fingers on my left hand? And like, they were so specific and obsessed with this characteristic. And not only is it associated with giants, it is associated with the supernatural and shamanism and the divine. From Peru to the Pueblo region, they just unearthed a 9,000-year-old Neolithic shaman in Jerusalem, and all the scholars say this is an act or a sign of divinity. So you have the same theme. And remember, this is like rock art.
Yep. We have to go to break. So hold it right there. So remember, call Jim, 800-930-2819. We'll be right back after these messages.
Hi, this is the Celtic seer, Barbara McGillicuddy, and you can find me at barbaramcgillicuddy.com or on YouTube at Metaphysical Awakenings with Barbara and Eric. As a medium and animal communicator, it is my joy to speak with people on this side and people who have crossed over to bring forth beautiful messages of love.
Hi, I'm Susan from My Enchanted Path, where I create divinely guided candles, intention oils, soaps, and more that make your spiritual practice simple. No complicated rituals needed. The names may be playful, but every product is serious about helping you shift your energy. All fragrances are clean and safe, free from the major toxins no one wants in their home or on their skin. With a 5-star rating and over 100,000 customers, MyEnchantedPath.com is a place to find charming items for an enchanted life.
Are you longing for the deepest healing of your soul? The kind that transforms you from the soul outward? At JewishHealer.com, Dr. Doran Shalev offers powerful energy healing rooted in the ancient wisdom of Kabbalah, where he heals the body through the soul and the soul through divine connection. Your transformation begins with a single session. Treat yourself and book yours today at JewishHealer.com. All sessions are 50% off through December.
Join us for Spirit Fest, coming soon to a city near you. Spirit Fest is a metaphysical, holistic, and crystal expo featuring an amazing array of vendors, speakers, authors, artists, crystals, healers, psychic readers, and more. Spirit Fest is your chance to explore and connect with others of like mind. Get all details, including our upcoming locations up and down the East Coast, also discounted admission, and more at spiritfestusa.com. Our next event is January 10th and 11th with special guests and special presentations, including psychic explorer, medium Mark Anthony, and also historical researcher, explorer, and author Jim Vieira. More details are coming to our website soon, and we look forward to seeing you at Spirit Fest in 2026. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We have got a great show tonight with Jim Vieira, world explorer, historical detective, and host of History Channel shows. And we are deep into discussions about his new book, Footprints of the Gods. And he is going to be live at Spirit Fest in St. Petersburg, Florida this weekend, giving a special presentation where we can see slides that go along with all of the things that he's talking about today. So if you're interested in seeing Jim here in Florida, go to spiritfestusa.com. Look at the top for the St. Petersburg show information. You can find out where to see him there. So we were talking about some of the other texts where they're talking about all of the different things with the six-fingered, the polydactyl, six-fingered or six-toed beings. What about double rows of teeth? Tell us about that.
That's the I told the story about how I got into the study of the giant phenomena through investigating Native American stonework in the town and county histories of New England and then across the country. The first account I found of a giant skeleton was 8 foot tall, recorded by George Sheldon, who was a former Massachusetts state senator, the founder of the Deerfield Academy, super prestigious academy. My brother actually went as a PG, played football there in the 70s. So he wrote about this 8 foot account where Henry Mather unearths the skeleton at the bars. That's the opening scene of Search for the Lost Giants. We take GPR where this was found, and we found this like 10 by 12 actually structure that we couldn't dig up for obvious reasons. Anyways, it was analyzed by an anatomist who studied at Berkshire College. I think it was like Thomas Perrin, who was from a long line of medical doctors. So I'm like, you have a skeleton that's unearthed. It's analyzed by a medical doctor, determined to be over 8 foot tall, head as big as a peck basket, massive jawbone, and double rows of teeth. And I'm like, what the hell is that? And then I continued to dig, and I would find Martha's Vineyard, over 7 foot tall, double rows of teeth in the town history.
Wow.
Middleborough, Massachusetts, 7'6", double rows of teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Rockingham, Vermont, this was in the show too, in the town and county history, there was a giant native chief who was like well over 8 foot tall, feared by the colonists at the time. He was killed. He was buried under a stone slab, but when they were building the railroad over in New Hampshire line, they blasted out and they found his skeleton.
Oh.
And it was giant. It had a jawbone that fit over the face and it had double rows of teeth.
Wow.
So this was like a living giant, feared, revered warrior who was then known in historical times, dug up, and Lyman Simpson Hayes, who wrote the town history of Rockingham, in his handwritten notes we found in real time during the show, he puts all double rows of teeth. So he's really highlighting like, what the hell does this mean? And then it goes on and on and on. Smithsonian accounts out to California, the Bates Mound in Ohio, 3 8-foot skeletons with double rows of teeth, Catalina Island. And I'm like, once again, how can this anatomic anomaly show up in these obscure accounts, often by professionals, not drunken farmers, with specific giant bone measurements in this era of inefficient communication, once again, in voluminous texts, like 700, 800, 900 pages. And that to me opened my eyes. We had a dental anthropologist on our show. We tried to figure it out. Is it like extra digits? Because I'll say this is what's so interesting about the polydactylism, that polydactylism is a rare genetic condition amongst humans. So a slight percentage have extra digits. Now, modern days usually removed at birth, but there is nothing to account for. There is no gigantism with extra digits. There's no genetic condition that matches that. So the giant in the Bible, the giant of Gath, it doesn't make any sense in a genetic orientation. So that's why I find it so intriguing. And the jawbone that fits over the face. That's another one. That's Smithsonian, Carnegie, all around the country, massive jawbone. And a lot of the accounts are just matter of fact, like, a crew of builders was out digging foundations. They found a giant skeleton. It had a 29-inch femur, and the largest man in the work crew picked up the jawbone and put it over his face. We have a whole chapter about that. And then you go to the British Isles and you find all the same stories. They're blasted for a railroad construction project. Some, excavators unearthed a burial mound and they put the jawbone over their face and they could slip their fingers in it. So the pseudo-skeptics, and there's a lot of them, would say, those are mastodon bones, or those are hoaxes.
Yeah. And
it's like thousands of them. And they are human burials with human artifacts, clearly, and with massive jawbones and anatomic anomalies. So this is what compels me to think there's a case here. Obviously, it's just common sense.
Can people still watch? I think they're on YouTube. Some of those History Channel shows are on YouTube still.
Yes, that's funny you said that. Because people ask me all the time, why didn't you get more seasons? I love that show. I'm not talking my game up, but the ratings were great. People loved it. The executives really liked us. The liaison between the Smithsonian and the History Channel voted down in this closed meeting. So we didn't get a second season. And, we were taking a run at in real time when we were filming in episode 2 in Staleville, Missouri, we find the burial site of an over 8-foot skeleton, like 8'5". We find the relatives of Billy Harmon who found it. We're in the cave where it was excavated. We find a picture in the doctor's office of over 6 foot tall Les Eden next to this 8.5-foot skeleton. We find it in the microfilm in real time. It's on the front page of the St. Louis Dispatch. And in the article, it says, there's another blurb that says the Smithsonian requested the skeleton be sent to them. So University of Missouri archaeologists wire it together. They ship it to the Smithsonian. We contact the Smithsonian and they say the largest skeleton they have is a 6'3" Sioux Native American with acromegaly, which is a disease condition. So you got shipped this 8.5-foot skeleton. You
Mhm.
can't shrink it down to 6'3".
Right.
And this was one of dozens that were, by Donald Cadzo, Oxford educated archaeologist, with George Fisher, the geologist, the head of geology in Harrisburg, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, 1933, 7'5". There's an article I have in my book. They're driving to Harrisburg to ship the 7'5". They're cruising with the 7'5" skeleton
Mhm.
to go to the Smithsonian.
So the Smithsonian has lost them. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they had a zealous head of anthropology,
Mhm.
like extremely racist. I mean, like uber racist, zealous, like just a real POS. He was the head of anthropology for like 40 years because the early scientists actually found giant skeletons, recorded them, and were interested in them.
Mhm.
They bought a fake 8.5-foot gelatin San Diego giant that we talk about, and it's fake, but they didn't know it. They were interested in the idea of
Right.
giants.
Right.
But then Hrdlička comes in, and he believes that people were in the Americans only 2,000 years ago. He had all these wrong theories. Long story short, it became a completely silly and conspiratorial idea to believe in giants, even though every native tribe would tell you
Okay.
that they were giants. So,
Well, hopefully that'll change. We actually have a caller on the line.
uh-huh.
All right, Sierra.
Yes, we have Rocky. Rocky, you are live.
Hi, Rocky.
Hey, I've been listening to the show. Great show, both of you. And I called to find out, or if you would kindly repeat the locations where people have recorded the giants. And when you came back from commercial break, boom, you are talking about it, like George Sheldon in the Berkshire College, and is it Marlborough, Vermont, and the skeletons there. In the Smithsonian, Jim, is there have they, because of the disagreement about, and then the guy doing the fake stuff, at the Smithsonian, are there still replicas or something of the giants there to give credence to all of this research? Because the Smithsonian is so credible. Can people go and see these things?
Good question. No. I got to say that quite a few of the accounts, not just in the Smithsonian, but in other literature, were the bones crumble to dust. These super ancient, they're exposed to the air. And I did this TEDx talk. It was the #1 watched TEDx talk in the world, and was taken down because it was considered unscientific. But all I do was lay out these historical cases. Like, I don't even have a theory. It's like, do you believe that all these accounts are, in the historical record? But the point was that a lot of them crumble to dust. In fact, in 1873, in the Smithsonian Ethnology Report, Thomas Perrin unearths giant skulls in Illinois, 36-inch circumference skulls, right in the record. It's in our book. And he said there were many other skulls like this, but they crumbled to dust after they were measured. And that happens a lot, but there were plenty of bones that went to the Smithsonian that I talked about. And no, I don't believe in vast conspiracies, but an institution like the Smithsonian, I can definitely, I can imagine that there are government agencies that are trying to keep areas off limits in the Grand Canyon, stuff like that. I don't think that's too far-fetched. But a vast conspiracy where all these professionals are covering up evidence, that I don't subscribe to. So it's super frustrating. That's the thing about this.
I was looking to see if your book was in here.
Oh yeah.
So Jim will have those books for sale at St. Pete Spirit Fest.
It's all in Giants on Record.
Yeah.
And that's Rocky. That's why
Cool.
I like this
Okay.
polydactyl angle, because it's beyond the scope. It is artifacts, it is evidence, but it is not something that has been boxed up and brought to museums. It's basically in the Australian outback from 30,000 years ago, or Baja, California, 10,000 years ago. Giant hands and feet with extra digits are telling the story that the traditions tell us is true.
Well, thankfully, the photographs still exist of the men that were digging them up, and
Well,
trying to be precise.
well, I'm just going to have to get your book, of course.
No, I must have given you. I think I gave you one. But anyways, yes, thank you, Rocky.
Yeah, I appreciate
Well,
you
good. And where can people purchase your book, Jim?
On Amazon. Hugh Newman is my co-author.
Okay.
And if you go to
Okay. Well,
Megalithomania,
thank you.
okay.
Thank you
Thanks,
for
Rocky.
calling, and we hope to see you again soon.
I have a bunch of videos at Hugh's website,
Okay.
megalithomania.uk. So
You have a Facebook page with Hugh, also, don't you?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Giants on Record.
Yeah.
So Hugh is the English guy in Ancient Aliens. He's my co-author. You've probably seen him. He's everywhere. He travels the world. He runs tours, but he has great videos about, and we have talks. It's all online if you're interested in the subject.
Mhm.
And I go through account after account painstakingly. I try to give my theories and lay out context, but if you're interested in this story, it's out there in the ether.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And this dovetails nicely with the polydactylism and all the other research that you've been doing about that as well.
It's funny because I'm a stonemason by trade. So I travel the world. I understand geology very well. So that was in my wheelhouse. Like the megaliths of this soul. This is how they did this. This is, these tools couldn't have done that. But I went way out of my, studying Native American stonework was like my gig for a long time.
Mhm.
I went way out of my lane, and I'm taking on probably, I can't think of a more controversial idea, an idea that is considered utterly impossible and ridiculous to even entertain. So at this point, I don't really give a rat's ass because I've lived through so much, insults and I see the orientation of the people. It's just like, like dudes who knew they got to go for a run and lift weights. Their brains don't make any dopamine, so they're constantly like trying to agitate people. And I've learned just to be non-reactive. And I learned that people, the general public, is very quick-minded and intuitive. And I just feed them the information and the context. And most people, like, you're goddamn right. I mean, I get actors, actresses, celebrities, heads of companies, heads of banks contacting me.
Mhm.
Like, I'll go everywhere I go, people like, I love the giant story, but silence from archaeologists and anthropologists just because and they have been trained to believe that it is antithetical to science to even entertain such a thing. It's a religious idea. It's a mythological idea.
Right. We talked briefly about the tunnels or the pathways that are underneath the Giza. And I was not aware that they went all the way to Alexandria. That's really interesting.
Well, there's a lot of traditions that, like Madame Blavatsky talked about tunnels from Cusco in Peru to Sacsayhuaman.
Mhm.
And they just rediscovered those tunnels and they've been excavating them in real time. Graham Hancock's on that story. But the talk that I gave at the Edgar Cayce Foundation and at Spirit Fest this week was all the sources throughout history, esoteric Greek chroniclers that talk about structures under
Mhm.
the pyramids. And a lot of them, Solon, Iamblichus, Herodotus, that all these beings who went into the mystery schools are telling us about Atlantis and structures
Mhm.
under the Sphinx and the Great Pyramid, which is interesting.
And there is a subterranean level where there actually is a sarcophagus under the water because water did flow under the pyramid. That's why the belief is that it created energy and that was part of what made it the initiation chamber that it was. There was probably energy going through it. Eric Von Daniken, I believe, did the episode. I think I saw it on Gaia TV, where they haven't gone in and opened up the sarcophagus because they don't know what's in it and if it's protecting water from getting in it or.
There's also like the Osiris shaft. You look down. I've been in there with Hugh in a tour, and it's just like, wow, in the Giza Plateau, there's something's going on underneath. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence written about by Bavall in Secret Chamber, or maybe Hancock, was that Zawi Hawass in front of the temple, I think it was the Sphinx temple on the plateau right there, about 40 or 50 feet down, he drilled in the 90s and struck red granite. This, to me, I can't believe it's not. I talked to Matt Beal about it, I think, when I was on with him. Red granite only comes from Aswan, right? So hundreds of miles away down the Nile, everything's limestone. And if you have something that's granite 40 or 50 foot down, you have something that was man-made there. And it's just one of those things like Edgar Casey would say, the consciousness of humanity has been in the gutter for a long time. It has not been able to receive these ideas because the Hall of Records, Casey said, is under the power of the Sphinx. And there are 3 halls of records, one near Piedras Negras on the Usumacinta River in northern Guatemala, a Mayan complex that was much more ancient, one off the coast of Bimini in a sunken temple, and one under the power of the Sphinx. And they're all the same sets of records put there about 10,600 BC. And what's interesting about Casey, he says like Iltar and the temple priests show up in 10,600 BC and bury him in the Yucatan at Piedras Negras, like very specific. Under the power of the Sphinx, you have these records. And the initiates are supposed to incarnate again and refine them when humanity is ready. And I'm pitching a show to a network right now, my brother and I, about investigating the Lost Hall of Records and trying to find the underworld of Giza. And I will laugh at my producers a couple weeks ago, like, if we go into the Hall of Records, we're going to melt like the Nazis in Raiders of the Lost Ark. Because we're too effed up. But it's a cool story.
It'd be a great show.
Great show. It's like, so anybody who wants to fund the show, I think, because I pitch shows to networks all the time, Discovery and History Channel, and work with executives, and I just really feel that's the best show idea ever. You get 3 places you can investigate. You can tell the background story, the nature of the gods. You can read through all the translations of all the texts, tell this wild story as in real time. We work with the Egyptian government and we try to find, we work with the Mexican government. It's just.
And Edgar Casey had predicted that Atlantis will start to reappear again in the Atlantic Ocean. And not long after, there was a road. It clearly was a structure that's under the water off of Bimini.
In 1968, he said like evidence would show up. And that was the year that I think it was Valentine was the pilot. Mason Valentine, maybe.
Flying over it.
I could get those names wrong. But anyways, yeah, that's why the Casey people have been leading the excavations at Giza for like 50 years. It's wild. The ARE, the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach, is basically a repository of Casey's readings. And the karmic drama you have Zawi Hawass, who was funded by the ARE at Penn University, Mark Lerner, the other world-renowned Egyptologist who wrote a book about Casey and then was funded at the University of Chicago by the Casey Foundation, turned into an Orthodox archaeologist on the other side of the fence. I mean, they're not hostile, but they're not open to these ideas, either of them anymore. And then in the Casey material, all these beings, you get Hancock and Baval and Robert Schoch, and there's like this karmic dance of all the alternative minded ones are into mystical and spiritual ideas. I just think it reads true to me that there's this story behind the scenes, and that's what I do. I go with my gut. My gut tells me there's something in the underworld. And quickly this year, we're going to find out what's in the void in the Great Pyramid. They're going in there. There was just on Matt Beal Limitless podcast. He just talked about my buddy Matt a couple months ago. So there's a lot moving forward. I think Chris Bledsoe in 2012 said that this white lady, this angelic being, told him, I think on Easter in 2026, this Hall of Records would be revealed. So he's up against it right now.
2026. Chris Bledsoe is also another interesting person to check out too. You can Google him. But we really support the ARE and Edgar Casey because, again, his information really just sets a high bar. This was all channeled well before the internet and books and things. And he was a minister, if I remember correctly. He would just go to sleep and he would channel information. He was really, really, really good health information. And a lot of channelers will not get involved in health readings anymore because of liabilities, unfortunately.
Absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
but if you subscribe to the ARE, this is not a paid sponsorship. You can get access to all of the readings, and you can actually search things there. So we do need to wrap it up for tonight, though, because this was so good we could go on another hour easily. So again, if you want to see Jim in person here in Florida this weekend, spiritfestusa.com. Look for the St. Pete page. We're at the St. Petersburg Coliseum. And you can find Jim on Facebook. And next week, Jim is going to be our guest again. I'm actually really excited. So as you know, not only is he been exploring all of these things and really good with cultural information, but he's also very good at psychology. And then of course, the Course in Miracles and the Edgar Cayce teachings, but we're going to be discussing cults, which I think is really interesting. And it's going to be everything from what you think Charles Manson, and Jim Jones, but then we're really going to get into some of the newer things like NXIVM, Jody Hildebrand. So anyway, it's going to be a fantastic show. I literally can't wait. So thank you to everybody for joining us, and I look forward to seeing everybody. We'll be live again next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and you can catch us in rerun always on our website, thesanctuarynetwork.com. So thank you everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it, and see you next week. Thank you for spending this time with me here on the Sanctuary Network. Tune in every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Transformation Network as we gather to share stories, wisdom, and practices that remind us of something essential. Sanctuary isn't just a place you go, it's a space you create in your heart, your home, and your daily life. I hope today's conversation sparked something in you, a sense of belonging, a new idea, or simply a reminder that you are not alone on this journey. If this touched you, please share it with someone who could use a little light. Together we can grow this circle of sanctuary and inspire a ripple of healing around the world. And don't forget, the journey continues at spiritfestusa.com, thesanctuarynetwork.com, and naturalwellnessexpo.com. And of course, every week right here on Transformation Network. Until next time, may you be well, may you be inspired, and may you live fully in sanctuary.